Welcome once again to the entire class of SE Electronics and Computer Science Semester 3 for the subject Electronic Devices abbreviated ED with the subject code ECC 302. Today we shall continue further with module number 5 titled Rectifiers and Filters. Today we will be completing unit number 5.2 by taking the last and the only remaining topic, that is the CLC or the pi filter. Previous to this, we have already covered the other filter circuits such as the capacitor filter, the inductor filter, as well as the inductor capacitor filter. So today's session focuses on the CLC or the pi filter. Before we continue further, you need to have a knowledge about the inductor and capacitor, that is the LC filter, which was covered earlier during lecture number 9. The YouTube link as well as the QR code are given for the same. Starting off, the syllabus, as you all know, contains 4 different filter circuits, and we have covered the previous 3 of them. That is the capacitor filter, the inductor filter, and the inductor capacitor or the LC filter. For each individual filter circuit, we'll be covering the circuit diagram, the principle of operation, its working, expressions for the average or the DC output voltage, expressions for the average or the DC output current, along with its ripple factor gamma. So let us start with studying the capacitor inductor capacitor, that is the CLC, also called as the pi filter. Since this would be our last session involving module number 5 titled rectifiers and filters, which involves the unit number 5.2, we'll be doing a brief recap of the different filter circuits as well. So prior to this, we had already covered the capacitor filter, the diagram of which is as shown. You have the capacitor element connected directly in shunt or in parallel with the load. For this particular capacitor filter, what we saw was that the ripple factor was inversely proportional to the load, meaning the capacitor filter worked very well if the load RL was extremely high. The only drawback of the capacitor filter was during every charging cycle given by T1, it would draw a very heavy current through the PN junction diodes. This is due to the fact that the capacitor C charges almost rapidly, giving rise to a peak or the surge current flowing through the diode. Such spikes can be removed by using the inductor filter, because the property of an inductor is to prevent any rate of change of current through it. So these spikes were actually smoothened out by using the inductor or the L filter. For the inductor filter, the filter element, the inductor or the coil itself, is connected in series with the load. The ripple factor for this particular filter is directly proportional to the load RL, meaning the filter works extremely well if the load is very less or if the load is very light. The drawback of the inductor filter is that the inductor itself is large, bulky, as well as expensive, and furthermore, resistance of the coil will cause heating issues. So, although the inductor filter helps to minimize or suppress the transients or spikes due to the rapid charging of the capacitor C filter at the beginning of each half cycle, it has its own limitations too. The filtering action can be improved further, taking the best inputs from the capacitor filter as well as the inductor filter, thereby giving us the inductor capacitor or the LC filter. Now this one has 2 different circuit elements, inductor L as well as capacitor C, that provide a much better and a much smoother filtering action compared to the individual filters of the inductor filter as well as the capacitor filter. The only issue with the inductor and capacitor filter is that since we have 2 different reactive elements with different natures, a critical inductance has to be established, otherwise the filtering action may not be good. And finally, we take the CLC or the pi filter, which gives the best filtering action among all the 4 different filter circuits. You have 2 capacitors C1 and C2 with a single inductor L perched between them. Hence the name comes CLC, because on either side of the inductor you have capacitor C1 and you have capacitor C2. Usually, for the point of view of simplicity and for the ease of circuit design, usually both capacitors are taken to be of the same values. So normally you may have C1 is equal to C2 is equal to C. The name comes pi because the circuit diagram resembles the Greek alphabet pi. Hence the name comes the pi filter. Looking at the operation, we had already seen the actual behavior of an inductor wherein the voltage was proportional to the rate of change of current through it. And we had seen also that the inductive reactance XL is a linear function of the applied signal frequency F, because mod XL is equal to 2 pi FL. Similarly, for the capacitor, the current through the capacitor was proportional to the rate of change of current through it. So this equation proved the fact that capacitors can pass AC, but they will be blocking DC, because for DC, the voltage across it remains constant. So there is no current flowing through the capacitor because the derivative of any constant is definitely a zero. The graph of the capacitive reactance versus the frequency F is a typical hyperbolic curve, because the capacitive reactance modulus XC is given by 1 upon 2 pi FC. As F tends to go towards 0, XC tends to go towards infinity, while as F tends to go towards infinity, XC tends to go towards 0. This is the primary reason why the capacitive reactance graph does not touch any of the axes. When we have all the three elements, the capacitive reactance for capacitance C1, the capacitive reactance for capacitance C2, as well as the inductive reactance all plotted together, there will be a certain resonant frequency F0 for which we'll be having XL equal to XC1 equal to XC2. This graph is that of XC given by 1 upon 2 pi FC1. This one is of XC2 given by 1 upon 2 pi FC2, while this indicates the inductive reactance given by XL is equal to 2 pi FL. We will also have a condition in which at a particular frequency of the rectified output voltage, we'll be having resonance in which all the three reactances are exactly equal. Looking at the operation for the CLC or the pi filter, the circuit diagram is exactly the same as in the previous case. The complex circuit of 230 volts AC 50 Hertz, the step down transformer, rectifier is all enclosed by a single block like this. So it ultimately gives us a two-port network in which the output voltage V out is nothing but the fully rectified DC pulsating output voltage whose amplitude changes from 0 to the value plus Vm. Once again, this voltage, although belonging to the first quadrant, is not stable, neither it is of the form of a straight line. It is undergoing zero value at the origin, at 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, etc. So this cannot be said to be a stable or a still or a continuous voltage, but on the other hand, this voltage has an AC component and it has a DC component too. The diagram is the same. You have the capacitor C1, you have the capacitor C2, and you have the inductor L between them. The load resistance RL is connected in parallel or in shunt with capacitor C2. IL represents the DC or the average load current flowing through RL, whereas VL represents the DC or the average load voltage obtained across the load RL. Now, when we have the rectified output voltage, which is of course pulsating DC, containing a both a DC component as well as an AC component appearing at the output terminal, capacitor C1 immediately swings into action. Whatever is the AC component is directly bypassed down to ground because the capacitor C1 offers a very low reactance to AC, but it allows DC to proceed further. So the DC component can easily proceed through the inductor L because the inductive reactance is extremely small for DC, but it is very, very high for AC. So once the signal component reaches the capacitor C2, if any AC component was present, which was not bypassed through C1 or which was not blocked by L is finally bypassed down to ground through the very low reactance offered by capacitance C2. So what we have is we have a DC voltage finally appearing across the load resistor RL. So while C1 and C2 are known to are known to pass any AC component or any AC signal down to ground, the inductor L is known to allow any DC current through it easily. This will give us a highly stabilized version of the DC or the average load current IL, along with a highly stabilized version of the DC or the average load voltage given by VL. Taking a look at the entire operation, what we have is the inductor L is connected in series with the load RL, but both capacitors C1 and C2 are connected in shunt or in parallel. Capacitor C1 will bypass the AC component directly obtained from the output of the full wave bridge type rectifier circuit. It will bypass it down to ground because it offers a very low reactance and it allows the DC component to reach further. The inductor L offers a very high reactance, also called as opposition, to the AC component, thereby allowing the DC component to proceed further. And the capacitor C2 bypasses any remaining AC component down to ground, offering a very low reactance to it. But on the other hand, it allows the DC component taken from the inductor to finally reach the load RL. So a continuous supply of the DC or the average current IDC through the load RL is maintained by the inductor L, whereas a continuous supply of a DC voltage VDC or VL is maintained across the load RL by the capacitors C1 and C2. This operation is exactly similar to the LC filter or the inductor capacitor filter. The expressions for the DC or the average output current IDC are exactly the same as that of the inductor and the inductor capacitor filter, where IDC is equal to twice Im upon pi, where Im is nothing but the maximum or the peak secondary current given by the expression Im is equal to Vm divided by square root of RL plus Rx plus twice Rf the whole term square plus 4 times omega square L square, in which Vm is simply the maximum or the peak value of the secondary voltage, resistances of the load, the internal transformer secondary winding, and the diodes are now respectively given by RL, Rx, and Rf. The coefficient 2 comes due to the fact that there are two diodes which are working in tandem during each half cycle. 4 is a constant. Omega is simply equal to 2 pi f, the angular frequency, where f is equal to the frequency of the input AC voltage supply given in hertz, and L is the actual inductance of the inductor or the coil. The average DC output voltage VDC is given by the expression twice Vm upon pi minus IDC brackets open Rx plus twice Rf plus Rs, where Rs is nothing but the series or the internal DC resistance of the inductor or the coil itself, whereas Vm, IDC, Rx, and Rf have the same notations. The ripple factor gamma for a CLC or for a pi filter is given by gamma is equal to 1 upon 4 root 2 omega cube L into C1 into C2 into RL. Now, there are a couple of interesting part. The first part is just like the capacitor filter, the ripple factor is inversely proportional to the load RL. So if RL is extremely large, gamma will be extremely small. And yes, under ideal conditions, gamma should be 0, but under practical conditions, the ripple factor gamma should be as small as possible. Here you have omega cube because there are three reactive components L, C1 and C2. Recall that the ripple factor expression for the LC filter had a term omega square because it had two reactive components L as well as C. The expression for the ripple component or the ripple voltage VR peak is given by VDC divided by 4 FRLC, whereas that of the RMS value is given by VDC divided by 4 root 3 F into RL into C. Reason being that RMS and peak are not directly related by the root 2 sign is because the ripple voltage waveforms which are taken across the load will be exactly similar to a typical triangular waveform due to the capacitor C2 charging as well as discharging. So for a triangular waveform, the ripple RMS and the peak value have been shown by the value root 3. That's a standard expression. The features or the characteristics for a CLC or for a pi filter are as follows. It minimizes the ripple content in the output load current IL is equal to IDC due to the presence of an inductor connected in series with the load resistor RL. It also minimizes ripples in the output load voltage VL is equal to VDC due to the presence of the capacitors C1 and C2 approximately in shunt or in parallel with the load resistor RL. The ripple factor is inversely proportional to the load RL as it is evident from the ripple factor expression. It works extremely well for very heavy or for very large loads with a high value for RL, which ultimately results in a very low ripple factor value gamma. However, the only issue with the CLC or for the pi filters is with three components, analysis becomes a bit complicated. The hardware cost and the size increases, and by using an inductor L, they tend to be large, expensive, and bulky. And due to the internal DC resistance, they cause excessive heating problems. The numerical analysis for the CLC or for the pi filter are exactly the same as that of the previous cases, and we have seen all the 7 steps exactly the same way. We always assume the AC input supply voltage as 230 volts AC 50 Hertz unless it is otherwise mentioned. American supplies use 120 volts AC 60 Hertz frequency. Once we have with us the primary AC input supply, we can easily calculate the secondary voltage RMS value using the step-down transformer turns ratio N1 is to N2 from the standard transformer equation where V1 upon V2 is equal to N1 upon N2. Here, keep in mind that V1 and V2 both either have to be RMS values or peak values or ultimately peak to peak values. Point number 3 states that the secondary peak value or the maximum voltage obtained across the secondary given as Vm can simply be obtained by multiplying root 2 with the secondary RMS voltage. So we have Vm is equal to root 2 into V2 RMS. Next, the average or the DC value of the output current can be calculated as IDC is equal to twice Im by pi, where Im is equal to Vm divided by square root brackets open RL plus Rx plus twice Rf the whole term square plus 4 into omega square into L square. Point number 5 says that once we have the value for the DC or the average output current, we can easily calculate the DC value of the output voltage as VDC is equal to twice Vm by pi minus IDC brackets open Rx plus 2Rf plus Rs. Ripple factor calculation is completely independent of any voltage or current because it is given by gamma is equal to 1 upon 4 root 2 omega cube L C1 into C2 into RL. And we can easily obtain the ripple components, which can be the peak ripple value or the RMS ripple value using the standard expressions VR peak is equal to VDC upon 4 into F into RL into C. VR RMS is equal to VDC upon 4 root 3 into F into RL into C. This is a typical homework based problem for a capacitor inductor capacitor, that is the CLC or for the pi filter. The data given to us is that the filter component values are C1 and C2 are both same at the value 100 microfarads. You have L, the inductance is equal to 1 Henry. The load RL is equal to 1 kilo ohm. And you have the 230 volts AC 50 Hertz standard AC input supply. The internal components are given by Rx is equal to 0.1 ohms, Rf is equal to 25 ohms, and RS is equal to 1.5 ohms. For those who are really interested and for those who are also watching the video, you can just put down your answers in the entire comment section below. So this is a typical homework based problem. And since we are coming to an end of unit number 5.2, which is titled filters, let us end this particular session by revising the different filter circuits. The first main part was filters were essentially required because you take any kind of a full wave rectifier circuit, be it bridge type or be it say center type transformer, the rectified output voltage will definitely be pulsating in nature with both the AC and the DC components in which ripple factor is extremely high. So even though you are converting AC into DC, you do not get a pure DC output signal at all, but it is completely pulsating. The amplitude is changing vastly from 0 to the value Vm, and there are several instances where the voltage is actually falling down to 0 volts. So the main need for filter circuits comes because you need a mechanism in which the entire pulsating DC rectified output can be fully converted into a stable and into a constant DC voltage, which can be sufficient enough to drive any electronic gadgets or any electronic circuits for real life practical applications. That is why we have filter circuits. So what we have is rectified output voltage is highly pulsating in nature with both the AC and DC components. Ripple contents are extremely high, and we have already derived the answer. It was approximately 48.34% for both the full wave rectifier circuits. Practical electronic gadgets, circuits, devices cannot tolerate such a high ripple content. Their operation may falter and they may easily get damaged. Hence, there is a need to decrease or to minimize the ripple content further by using filter circuits. And the different filter circuits which we all have studied so far are: the first one we began with was the shunt capacitor filter having a ripple factor as shown. We also studied about the inductor filter. The main job of the inductor filter was to basically minimize the spikes or the transients due to the capacitor charging through the PN junction diodes. Then we had the combination of both the L and the C elements giving us the LC filter. So what we see is that progressively the filtered output is actually getting smoothened with time. And finally, we have the best possible filter circuit, that is the CLC or the pi filter, with the extremely smooth output voltage obtained as shown. However, the only drawbacks to this are the difficulty in the analysis and the large number of components required. And of course, whenever we have inductors, they are meant to be large, bulky, as well as expensive. Different filter circuits can actually be compared on the following criteria. The first one is the circuit element used. It can be the capacitor or it can be the inductor. The second comparison criteria can be the connection of the filter element in the entire circuit itself. It can be in series or it can be in shunt, that is parallel. The third point would be the circuit or the block diagram, which we have just seen in the slide previous to this one. The fourth criteria is extremely important: the expressions for the ripple factor gamma. The fifth criteria is dependence upon the load RL. We already know that capacitor filters have ripple component gamma, or sorry, the ripple factor gamma inversely proportional to the load RL. Inductor filters have ripple factor gamma directly proportional to the load RL. For LC filters, this becomes completely independent. So no matter how big or small the load is, RL doesn't fit into the equation for gamma. And finally, for the CLC or for the pi type filters, ripple factor is once again inversely proportional to the load resistance RL. The next point will be which ripple component has been minimized, either the current or the voltage. Next, we have the different advantages or merits offered by each filter: C filter, L filter, LC filter, or the CLC filter. And last but not the least, we can have disadvantages or demerits or limitations or drawbacks for each case. So if we put all of these things into a practical perspective, this is an entire table that we get. So we have all the comparison parameters as shown. Of course, I am only not showing the circuit or the block diagram because it is apparently too much easy to draw. So what we have is, for the circuit element, this one has a single capacitor, this one has a single inductor. LC uses both the inductor and the capacitor, whereas the CLC or the pi filter uses two capacitors and one inductor. So from the hardware point of view, this one is quite complicated. The connection of the circuit element for the C filter is in shunt with the load. For the L filter, it is in series with the load. For the LC filter, L is in series, whereas C is in shunt. And for the CLC or the pi type filter, you have the inductor in series, but you have both the capacitors C1 and C2 in shunt. Technically speaking, C1 is connected in parallel directly across the rectifier output terminals, whereas C2 is connected directly across the load resistance RL. The expression for ripple factors are all standard terms given as shown, and directly based upon this particular expression, we have for a capacitor filter, the ripple factor gamma is inversely proportional to the load. For the inductor or the L filter, ripple factor gamma is directly proportional to the load, meaning the capacitor filter here can work very well if the loads are very heavy, but the inductor filter can work very well if the loads are extremely light. But for the inductor capacitor or the LC filter, the ripple factor gamma is completely independent upon the load RL as the entire equation shows. But for the CLC or the pi type filter, once again, the ripple factor gamma is inversely proportional to the load resistance RL. The ripple content is minimized in the form of a DC voltage because the capacitor will charge and discharge rapidly. The inductor filter will minimize the DC current because it will release as well as store energy in a very rapid way. This will help to minimize the ripple content in both the current component as well as the voltage component, and the CLC filter also, just like its LC counterpart, will help minimize variations in the DC load current and the DC load voltage as well. For the capacitor filter, advantages can include, apart from a very good filtering action, it can be low cost, easy to design, easy to analyze, and very simple to connect. The advantage of the inductor filter is that it is used to primarily minimize the spikes or to minimize the transients causing a peak or a surge current in the PN junction diodes for the capacitor filter. The LC filter has an advantage of offering a very good filtering action as compared to both the individual C filter as well as the LC filter. But the CLC or the pi filter offers a superior filtering action thanks to a three-stage protection given by a capacitor C1, the inductor L in series, and the capacitor C2 in shunt. The only drawback for the capacitor or the C filter is the spikes or transients resulting due to the surge current in the diodes. This happens because the capacitor will charge rapidly. Inductors typically are very large, bulky, expensive, and they have problems due to the internal heating as well. For LC filters, again, problems by the inductor still remain, but here, while designing the components of L and C, we also have to take into account the critical inductance so that the current can be smooth. For the CLC or for the pi type filter, they use slightly more number of components. The design becomes complex. The cost, no doubt, is high, and they have a slightly oscillatory response, also called as an undamped response, meaning the voltage takes a bit of time to settle down. So with this, we end the entire module number 5 titled rectifiers and filters, and with this the last unit number 5.2 that contain filters also comes to an end. Once again, the list of textbooks, reference books, as well as the online resource material and the website remains the same. Once again, thank you all.